I would build up longs again.
Okay. Ankur Shah of Value Investing India joins us right now as well on the show. Ankur, good having you. Thanks so much for joining in. We are in the closing moments, but let's talk about NBFCs. They're on a tear. We're talking about some of them right now as well. You had a bullish stance the last time on housing finance companies in particular. What's your view now?
Yeah, I think last time I mentioned private sector banks and NBFCs, and both have returned quite well since I recommended them. So I think it's hard to make the valuation call on NBFCs. I think, again, if you have the longer term time frame, I would think they're still attractive from a 3 to 5 year perspective. I think within the next 12 months they've already run up a lot, so I think it's hard to maybe grind through a little bit more gains here. But I think longer term the outlook still looks bright, because I think what's happening is that the public sector banks are basically capital constrained, and so you're seeing a lot of the new lending growth occurring at the NBFC level. And so I think they'll continue to take market share along with the private sector banks. So I think they gain share at the expense of the public sector banks. And I think that's kind of a secular trend which will play out over a number of years going forward.
Very quickly, Ankur, before we wrap up the market and we are counting down to it, what's the view on PSU banks? Do you think the pain is over post the earnings that you've analyzed thus far into the season? And how do you characterize the rally from here?
Yeah, I'm hoping that we're seeing kind of the peak now, and maybe the Q1 numbers are showing that you have some banks reporting positive earnings again. But I still think it's kind of early in the cycle, and it takes a number of years for it to play out over time. So I think it's still a little early to make the case that the public sector banks are all clear and that the NPL problem has been contained completely.
Okay, Ankur. So much more to speak about. But just before we get into that wrapping mode, Tanveer mentioned